venture capital. But first, I would also love to hear about your work with on sustainability and supporting female entrepreneurs. I know that you work with Jibal and Idama.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could tell us more about that.
Sure. So thanks for having me. Really, it's a pleasure to be here, meeting the Iraqi entrepreneurs. I mean, for me, I'm really honored to be invited as part of the speaker series, and I really hope that this session will be beneficial to all entrepreneurs in Iraq. So to tell you a bit about me, and then we can do the link with Idama. So I studied, my background is in political science and social science. So I did a master's in Middle Eastern studies. And then I also did an undergrad in Middle Eastern studies and a master's in business. So I've always been interested in this interaction between, private sector and the development, and how can we support the private sector in emerging economies. So I actually started my career in a company called Ametis Finance. It was also an investment fund, supporting small businesses across sub-Saharan Africa. So I've done that I did that for 4 years. Basically supporting companies in Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Kenya, so across Africa, growing and developing by funding them. And this has been a very interesting experience for me, because I got to see how supporting the private sectors and entrepreneurs was key to economic development and growth. And really, going into ventures wasn't planned at all. So it was more like an opportunity. I actually met the founders of BNY, so the partners today, Abdallah and Ghais Yafi, and they told me about their this new fund they wanted to start out of Beirut that would be focusing on Middle Eastern startups, but also global, kind of bridging the two worlds. And I thought, being myself like half French, half Lebanese, having lived here and there, so I felt like this looks like an interesting opportunity. So this is how I joined actually BNY. And today I'm principal there, but I've been there for 4 years and a half since inception. So it's quite interesting also what I've seen, the rise and fall of the Lebanese ecosystem. And I hope like this can be also like interesting lessons learned for the participants. But so you were mentioning Idama, and with Idama, Idama is a training and coaching, if you want, training and advisory business focused on the Sustainable Development Goals, so the SDGs. And what I do with them is really about impact. So I'm putting, if you want, my expertise in finance and investment to the service of women entrepreneurs in Lebanon and small businesses, micro businesses who needs it more than ever today. And this is how actually we got also to interact a bit with the Iraqi ecosystem in the past. But so this work is really super inspiring, because as we know, women have less access to a lot of things, be it capital, be it to support. They have also, so many things to take care of aside from their professional career because of the gender role and so on. And this can be also a discussion. But so supporting women precisely has been for me like super inspiring, and a lot of great ideas come out of women entrepreneurs. So this is, if you want, like my second hat. Like I have my investor hat at BNY and also have my kind of impact and supporting the community hat at Idama. So yeah, that's about me in a nutshell.
And it seems like your other hat and your start of the career has always been with more nascent communities, ecosystems. So maybe we'll get into that later on, and how it ties in with Iraq as also a nascent ecosystem. So can you tell us more about BNY? What is their unique mission and vision and their perspective on the venture landscape? What kind of background do they have? What are they doing these days?
Okay, so BNY was created by Abdallah and Ghais Yafi originally. They are two brothers, but they are also ex-entrepreneurs. And I'm highlighting this because actually what differentiates us and what is really in our mission is that we see ourselves as founder first VC. And this is how we we really think of what we do. We're not here to, just give money and disappear. We're not here just to challenge the entrepreneur all the time and ask him what he's doing. Like, we're really here to empower entrepreneurs and to support them to the maximum, because the founding team, they were entrepreneurs themselves, and they know how hard and how tough it can be, and what are the challenges that an entrepreneur go through. So I would say our first differentiator is really how we look at venture capital, how we look at investing. And for us, it's really more about finding unique entrepreneurs, of course, that are building disruptive technologies in the region and beyond. And this is how we're bridging. But it's also about like support and how we can help them grow. And I think this has been also the feedback of a lot of entrepreneurs we have been working with in the past, is that we're not here to make them feel bad or challenged or all the time, questioning them about what they're doing. We build things, it's based on trust and it's based on support. So I would say this is our main, if you want, differentiator. The second element is, of course, the bridging element. So what I found interesting when joining the BNY team was that, yes, we're going to focus on the Middle East, but we also think that in order to create a stronger Middle Eastern ecosystem, we need to tie it to more mature ecosystems, which are based in, the UK, the US, France, Europe, etc. And we thought that investing in both, it's great for return, but it also allows for lessons learned between both. So the idea here is, how can we support Middle Eastern startups to go global through this network that is built also with entrepreneurs in the West, etc., and our own network being also between here and there. And how can we help actually US entrepreneurs, European entrepreneurs, to come to the region and expand to our region? And we think that, we have a lot of things to offer in our region. We have a lot of, a young population that is tech savvy. We have a lot of problems to solve. So really, this bridging element is definitely something that is unique, and that is the only fund, at least when I joined the fund, it was the only one that really had this global approach, as well as MENA focused. So I think those are the two, if you want, differentiator. Hala, to give you maybe a bit more data, so the first fund was raised in 2016. It's a $46 million fund. It was raised under the 331 circular in Lebanon, and this is something maybe you want to discuss later, but this was an initiative, a great initiative, in my opinion, that was created by the central bank to allow banks in Lebanon to fund venture capital, and it was kind of a government backing for the ecosystem in Lebanon. And it really allowed the ecosystem to thrive and develop. So the first fund was under this circular, which requested that half of the investments go to the Lebanese market, Lebanese startups, and the other half could go abroad, so beyond Lebanon. Now, BNY is currently finalizing its second fund. So total, we're going to be around, I think, between two funds, $100 million between the two funds. And the second fund will be based out of Abu Dhabi. We're going to still be in Beirut, but we're opening an office in Abu Dhabi. And the mandate will remain the same, so still bridging MENA. So 50% of our investments are going to be in MENA, and the other 50 will be still US, UK, etc. So that's, maybe that's, if you have any more question on BNY specifically, I can definitely.
If we can actually take a step back, when you mentioned the founder first differentiator. So what do you look for in a founder or in a team? What are the key criteria that they need to tick? And the other also part is, what type of support do you offer? So other than funding, maybe it's soft landings into other countries, access to customers, access to more funding, technical support, legislative support. So if you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. So what we look for in a team, I think the founding team needs to be passionate. Okay, so I think the first thing we look for when a founder comes to pitch us is, how passionate is he about what he's saying? How passionate is he about his business? We often say So grit, passion, we want to feel that, he's creating something that is, he or she creating something that is dear to their heart and that they're passionate. When we look at more, let's say, technical things, of course, we look at background. So often we invest in entrepreneurs that have some kind of experience, professional experience, but it is not always the case. So we also have very young founders, but I would say that when we have an entrepreneur that comes with, an expertise in a certain industry, or if he doesn't have this expertise, at least he has advisors or a co-founder who is an expert or has been working in this field, it's definitely something that we look at. We look at complementary founding team also, so complementary skills. So it's always good to see if it's 2-3 founders, to see one that is, for example, great at marketing and sales, the other one who is more like technical developer, or like that can be the CTO, and the third one that's, let's say, great at finance or whatever. Like having those complementary skill set is definitely something that adds, if you want, the quality of the whole team. And yeah, I would say those are the three. No, willingness to take feedback. I think this is a very important thing also to mention to the Iraqi founders and ecosystem. The willingness to try again and again. So they don't take no for an answer, but at the same time they listen and they acknowledge, our feedback, and they try again and again. And I think this openness, this growth mindset, if you want, of being receptive and not not saying like we know everything. This is definitely something that we really like in our when we see a founder. I can add more, but like being on top of his game, like knowing his numbers, but the first thing would be, definitely passion, grit, open to feedback, growth mindset, and also a good skill set, a good background. Your second question was, how do we support? I'm really sorry for the noise. I hope it's not too disturbing. Okay. So supporting, so we are actually doing several things, and we're actually trying today to create what we call our founder program, which is gonna basically put all what we do in a more organized and a more systematic way. But typically, we do a lot of business development. So what that means is we try to build our network of corporates, of potential, partners, co-investors. So for the corporate side, we know that for startups, the hardest thing is to get clients, especially in the early days, and to get this opportunity to actually try the solution or deploy the solution, demo the solution. So introductions to big groups in the region. For example, putting them in link with someone else, another entrepreneur that succeeded in this space, so building the connections and doing business development introductions. The second thing we really work on is helping them with fundraising. So typically, whenever they're raising a new round, we try to put them in touch with other VCs that might be interested. We can organize for them also webinars with our LPs. So our investors are often interested in co-investment opportunities. So things we do is allow for founders, especially when they're already portfolio companies and raising new rounds, we allow them to pitch to our pool of investors. Fundraising, business development. What we do also is, so a lot of support also on strategy and organization. And this is when we spend time every quarter, at least. We spend like an hour, even sometimes every month. Someone on the team spends some time with each founder to figure out what are the challenges today, how can we help, how can we support, be it with hiring, be it with like decisions, big strategic moves, and so on. So I would say like coaching and being acting as advisors, fundraising support. We also often review their pitch deck and so on to help them with the story. And the third one is definitely business development, introductions, And all of that is today being designed, if you want, in a kind of a founder program.
Okay.
Yeah.
This founder program, is it going to be like you're going to launch an online program, or is it just a structured way of doing things?
Yeah, exactly. Second. So it's a structured way of doing things. And so every time we onboard a founder, every time we decide that, we're going to invest in this portfolio company, we send this welcome email to the founder with the various things that we can offer. So so they know the expertise we have internally, and they know that if they need something related to this, this, and this, they can come to us and we can support them. What we've been doing lately, we hired a customer success expert. Not actually, we didn't hire him, sorry. We onboarded him as a consultant. And this person delivered a webinar to our founders on, how to be better at customer success, how to design a customer success function. This was online. And so even if he is not in the region, he managed to give this training or this session to founders even here. And then those were followed by coaching sessions, one-on-one with this specific expert. So we're trying to find innovative way to kind of go beyond investing. And we believe this will give back value to the shareholders because, when our founders do great, we do great. So this is the mindset if you want.
Exactly. So you said that sometimes you open doors for the startups with the corporates and they get to like beta test their products and services. How open do you feel are corporates working with novice businesses and companies, and not necessarily just in Lebanon, like in the region? Are they open up to this? Is this something they would consider?
So yeah, we're still not there 100%. So I would say they're more open than before. Corporates today, we're talking about the large banks, the large FMCG groups. We're talking about the large retailers. So not to mention names maybe here, but the large groups in the region. Today they realize that they cannot continue doing business without technology, and I think that COVID has been really kind of an eye-opener. Not event, but an eye-opener, year and a half for all those big groups where they realize, well, we cannot not be digitized anymore. Like we cannot not have an online presence. We need to be able to reach our clients beyond, our shops. We need to be able to reach our clients maybe on WhatsApp, like a chat based, or maybe online. So there is a real interest from the corporates today, and many of them are actually creating their own VC arms inside. So you start seeing like big groups having like some investment team investing in startups.
Or accelerator programs like Shell Hoop.
Exactly. Yeah, like Shell Hoop.
Okay.
So we've seen interest from, Majid Futtaim, Shell Hoop, like large groups, even like, the Zain group that is present in Ira, big telcos. So there is an interest. Now, it's true that when the startups are really small, they tend to shy away because they don't want to deploy a solution and then the startup stop getting funded, and then they've changed the whole process, and then the startup dies. So if you are like at seed stage, it's hard to convince for sure like a big corporate. But I think whenever they see that those startups are backed by investors that are solid and will follow on, and this is where the role of investors is really important when introducing those startups to big groups, they tend to be more interested. Akid, there is a pilot phase, there is a beta, it takes a lot of time. So between the moment when we're having first interaction and the solution get deployed, sometimes it's like 9 to maybe 6 to 9 months, But I would say that compared to 4 or 5 years ago, today there is a willingness at least. There is a willingness, and also the way that the CEOs are looking at tech has changed a lot over the past 2 years. But a lot needs to be done still, I think. Yeah.
I want to go back to your second thesis, the second differentiator, which is the bridging element.
Yeah.
So how does this happen? You talked about startups in the US and in Europe, and there's also the startups in the MENA. So how does the synergy work?
So the bridging happens in several ways. I would say the first way is really, how do we bridge? So technically, 50% of the money we raise needs to go to MENA startups, and 50% needs to go to global or non-MENA. So really, in our investment thesis, it's really clear. we need to allocate half-half. So this is the first way to bridge. In our portfolio, there will always be a mix of the two. I would say the second way we do it is, so we try to help MENA founders go abroad. So for example, we have a startup, it's a cybersecurity startup called Mikey. They wanted to grow beyond the region, and we helped them expand into the US through, contact connections, putting them in touch with VC funds in Silicon Valley. So we try to leverage the network we have abroad to help those startups that are trying to move abroad meaning beyond MENA, let's say, to do it. The second way is reverse. So whenever we have, for example, a company, let's say like Pirate Studios, it's a company that's based out of the UK. They do music studios, tech-enabled music studios. And at some point, they were really interested to expand to the Middle East. And so Beirut was their first kind of idea because, it's quite, it used to be quite booming in terms of creative and music and so on. And so what we did for them is we tried to map the potential locations for them, try to put them in touch with potential local partners here. So we also try to see, by leveraging our network in MENA, how we can help international startups go to the UAE, go to KSA, go to Lebanon, and so on. So if you want, we act as these intermediaries. The third element, and this is what we're actually working on a lot today with the founder program, we're trying to see how we can leverage the common knowledge and the lessons learned from both. And we have this idea, we're trying to implement it, of founder shadowing. So we wanna offer the opportunity for early stage or very young startups and early stage founders to have access to more experienced founders through this kind of mentoring program, and for them to learn, from each other. So this is something we haven't yet experimented. We're doing it, but it's not structured. So we put in touch founders with each other. They give advice to each other. But we really want to have this a bit more institutionalized. How can we, tap into the experience and knowledge of our US founders, our UK founders, so that they benefit, our Lebanon founders, UAE founders, and so on. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be like the other way around. Definitely, if someone is interested to expand into the MENA region, they might want to talk to some founders in the space that can help them. So yeah, I would say this is how we're trying to do it today.
I want to go to your point of when you introduce MENA companies to this, for example, investors in Silicon Valley. So I know Silicon Valley normally says, "Oh yeah, we're interested. Oh, we would like to see," and then when something actually does happen, all the talk and the hype just like goes down. What has happened in your experience?
So you mean when we introduced?
Right. Yeah, so I don't want to take Mikey necessarily as an example, but I mean, you introduced Mikey to the investors abroad. Did they take it a step further? Did they take this seriously? What was their response? How did they evaluate the startup? I mean, how did they decide, okay, no, this is good, or should we just focus on the US and this startup from Lebanon?
I think the hard part is the difficult part for us when introducing MENA founders to US funds or European funds is that those funds are interested to invest in companies that have a presence in their markets. So I think the experience has been different depending on the stage of the startups. That's for sure. So seed stage startups in MENA, it's going to be very tough for them to raise from US investors. Although we saw that Sequoia recently invested in an Egyptian, and this was the first deal of Sequoia in the Middle East. So kind of interesting, like it was a pre-seed Egypt-based startup. But I would say that at seed stage, those companies still haven't yet mastered their own market. So for an investor, for a US investor to look at, let's say, I don't know, I'm going to take an example, like a Toters. we didn't present and we didn't introduce Totals to US investors, but let's say because Totals is a delivery app. Actually, they're present in Iraq and they're doing great. So the feedback is going to be yes, but you know, it's too small. It's only in Lebanon or Iraq and so on. Like, what would be the relevance for us as US investors to come in? US investors would come in when they feel that this company can deploy the solution in the US. So for example, we have invested recently in a company called Arrow Labs. Okay, it's a field force management solution. It's based out of the UAE, but they are going global and they have clients in the US. And there was a US investor that recently led the round. So I feel that whenever we want to really attract US funds or UK or funds from abroad, they need to feel that this company has the potential to succeed in the market they're in. And I would say this has been the challenge for us. Yeah, I would say that.
So, and then going also back to this sort of matching, unstructured yet matching between startups for founders to help mentor each other. Do they have to be within the same industry, or, you know, if they're not in the same industry, they can still talk about valuation, they can still talk about other components. So how are the founders taking this? How are they handling this mentorship? What are the sort of things that they like to know about?
Yeah, so what we're thinking is definitely have an industry approach. So typically someone in the SaaS business, you know, subscription as a service, that is starting out, would be interested to talk to someone in the SaaS business that has, let's say, that's beyond, let's Series B or Series C, because they've been through the whole thing of, you know, customer acquisition. How do you lower your CAC on LTV? How do you make sure you have high conversion, the sales cycle, and so on? So what we think is, what we are trying to do is, how can we help, you know, fast track the lessons learned, and have someone that has been through the same challenges be able to give you some tips and mentor you with that regard. It doesn't have to be the same, like let's say, like I don't know, health tech. It can be SaaS for health and SaaS for something else, as long as we feel that there are some potential you know, lessons to be learned. Yeah. The other thing is, we want to leave it also free. So we're gonna ask founders, like, you know, our portfolio companies, you know who's there. Is there any founder like you would like to be, you know, put in touch with and interact with? I think we also have to, at the same time, leave it for them also to think, like, you know, who they would want to be connected with. So, and those webinars that we're creating are a good opportunity also for them to interact. And you know, and we have this idea also of creating potentially a Slack channel for our founders. So this is something that is really being explored as we speak. But the idea is to create connections as much as possible.
I love this whole holistic approach. Like, it's the corporates, it's the directly with the investors, it's with other startups, with other investors, international. So you're sort of not just
like bringing everyone together.
It's a whole circle. It's not just bridging.
But it takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and yeah, we also have to do investments and sourcing. So, you know, it's often it's a challenging task to balance between creating this whole community. It deserves that, like, it requires a lot of work, and also doing our like daily you know, usual job of finding great opportunities and investing and so on. Yeah, other funds have someone, like, usually funds end up when they grow and succeed having someone dedicated to this community building. We've seen that. Yeah.
So right now, basically, you've had, I think, over 80 deals across the funds. And what I want to know is, how do you evaluate an investment opportunity in the MENA versus the one in Europe, or versus the one in the US? Like, how is it different? Are the criteria the same? What are the different things you look at?
So this is actually a very interesting question. And I don't think that we can say it's MENA versus Europe or the UK or the US. I would say really like how I saw it, at least from my experience, it's really between, are you early stage? So are you pre-seed, seed? Or are you later stage to growth stage? And for us, because our thesis is we invest in MENA at early stage and we invest abroad at later stage. So this is where we tend to follow large investors. Maybe I can discuss this a bit in more detail later. But for me, this is the biggest difference. And for for an investor, when we go at early stage, so before reaching product market fit, what we look at really is the team. So the team is the number one. We want to know that this person will be able to execute on what they're saying, and they will be able to, if it's not working, they will have they will be resourceful enough to try again and test new things and go on. So I think when we're looking at early seed, pre-seed and seed, we tend to focus a lot on the team. When we look at growth, this is where the company is already established, product market fit is reached, they're trying to grow. Here we look at things like the KPIs, the CAC on LTV, the metrics, the traction, much more, and the team, and so the team as a whole. Another thing, early on, we tend to look also a lot at the market opportunity. So this is where we challenge. We're gonna challenge them on, is it a real opportunity? How big is the market? Are we solving a real problem? So seed and early stage get challenged a lot on this. Later on, post Series A, the market is there. We know it's more about how are you gonna scale? Do you have the engine to scale? And this is what we look at. To your point, I would say that MENA, I don't know if we can say it, but because we're doing a lot of early stage in MENA, definitely we had to do a lot more hand holding in MENA. So typically, supporting with financial forecast, with pitching. In the early days, also in Lebanon, it was a nascent ecosystem. So we had also to do a lot of hand holding and a lot of work ourselves. But I think this is definitely improving. And I think today we have MENA startups that are as good, even maybe better than US or UK based startups in terms of quality of deliverable, how they articulate the pitch, they're on top of their numbers, and we have top founders now in the region. So yeah, I would say it's more the difference, and this is something also for the founders to know. The difference really is more depending on the stage you're at. You want to focus on different things when you're pitching to investors because they will be interested in different things. Yeah, if that makes sense.
So since you have this broad view on the different portfolio companies in different countries, I want to know, did they react differently? How did they react towards COVID? Did some regions do better than others? Were the ones in MENA able to pivot? Did the ones in globally know how to deal with the situation? Because like in some of the readings that I did, they were saying that usually countries that face a lot of conflict are able to handle it much better, where in countries where everything is normally just like more easygoing than conflict-ridden areas. So what's your perspective on that?
Really, that's interesting. I want to see that study. Definitely, I mean, with all the challenges that Lebanon has been through, I think COVID now is like it's not anymore a challenge. But I would say what from the portfolio when thinking about it now, COVID really affected differently depending on the sectors. So I didn't see any difference between MENA versus non-MENA. I think sectors-wise, so travel was very severely affected. So we have a company, Holiday Me, one of our portfolio company. Of course, it was devastating because their business is about empowering travel, empowering Umrah in KSA. This was shut. So those businesses that were really in those hit hard sectors, they had a tough time. But I have to say that more generally, I think tech did mostly good, and there was a lot of new opportunities also for startups during this this time, and because of what we were mentioning earlier, so a lot of people that weren't inclined to digitize their business, a lot of SMEs, a lot of large businesses, they started to think about this. So we had also a lot of opportunity. I'm trying to think if there's any difference between like MENA and non-MENA, but yeah, no, we have, for example, we have a company in the US. They were in the office, office kitchen, like clean, healthy kitchen space. They had to pivot to delivering food to the houses. Same for Lunch On, that is also a delivery service out of the UAE. They were addressing offices before COVID, and they had to pivot to a home offering washmen as well. They used to do, they do cleaning. It's a cleaning service out of the UAE. The shirts used to be like 80% of what they did. So with COVID, people working from home, no more shirts. And they introduced the linen, so home linen service. So we've seen a lot of innovation, and they had the ones that really had like to survive what they did, basically all of them cut costs. So there was a lot of effort from all our startups on, being better, more efficient, more capital efficient, cutting costs and lowering as much as possible the fixed cost, because we didn't know how long it was gonna last. For those that managed to get funded during COVID, that was great. Some of them raised bridges. And the third thing is definitely they pivoted, all of them. So those that were affected pivoted for sure. And yeah, so we were lucky. We didn't have much losses, I would say, during COVID. But it's still some of them are still getting out of the COVID situation.
So because you have so much experience with the Lebanese ecosystem, and I would like to draw a lot of parallels with the Iraqi ecosystem. So basically, Lebanon pre-Circular 331 was still very nascent. Nobody knew what venture capital was, what a startup was. We also now are facing economic and political issues when it comes to having access to basics like internet and electricity, which is very similar to what's happening in Iraq. And also we know that in nascent ecosystems, normally the funding goes more to growth stage, and investors are very risk averse to early stage investments. So what are the lessons learned in Lebanon, and maybe something that can help our Iraqi startups and entrepreneurs?
Okay, so lessons learned from Lebanon. I think, so I would say lessons learned from Lebanon and beyond Lebanon. I would say to have a thriving ecosystem, so many things need to come together. It's not like a one thing. That's why it's called an ecosystem, right? Because like we have to have so many things together that come. But I would say ease of doing business is definitely something very important. So clear regulation, is to starting your company, that it's being clear, like how to start a company, the cost of starting a business. So all of the things related to opening bank accounts, having like kind of the right jurisdiction to emphasize. And this is something, for example, the UAE are doing really well now. And we see how the UAE like 10 years ago and now, the whole landscape has changed completely in terms of their capacity to attract entrepreneurs, because they worked a lot on this. They made it easier and easier for people to set up there. And I think Lebanon, at some point, they worked on this a lot. They worked on making it easier and less costly for startups to come and operate from here. You had a lot of offshore, I'm not going to go into the details, but they did a lot of improvement in terms of the legal structure. It wasn't perfect, of course, but they did that. Having government backing is essential, especially for early days, for early stage startups and like idea, seed stage. So this initiative 331 really unlocked some capital. So now we can, it can be debatable like where this capital came from. Yes, it's taxpayers' money, so this is okay. We can debate this, But I think like in developed countries, there is no ecosystem that was developed without the input of the state somehow. And this can be through, you know, funding accelerators, funding university program, R&D program at universities, but also mostly like having the capital to go from idea to, you know, a minimal viable product, not necessarily reaching, you know, revenues, but at least to have this possibility to think and work on your idea. And we're seeing, like in Lebanon today, who's doing that? It's NGOs, it's international organizations, like who's funding all those initiatives. And thank God they are here, because otherwise we wouldn't have had anything anymore. But 331, what 331 did, it unlocked a lot of capital, and it allowed for the creation of this ecosystem. And we see a clear shift between before 331 and after. And we had a lot of great companies out of this ecosystem, come out of this ecosystem. Like, you know, Anghami is a big success today, and it was created in Beirut. So when looking at it, it was a successful somehow initiative. Now the problem is that, you know, with like the whole situation, all the startups have left, and they're all trying to leave the country and open elsewhere. So it's like a bit, you know, we invested so much and now it all disappeared. But for ERA, I think, and drawing the parallel, so I think, you know, working on regulatory and, you know, ease of doing business, working on having relations between universities, program at universities, ecosystem partners, accelerators, incubators, all of that. And definitely having a way to fund, you know, the startups. And this is why, you know, programs like this one, like what you're doing today, is super important. Like, how can we attract capital? Angel funds, super important, you know, grants, competitions, like how can we help having some money available for those ideas to transform into something before the venture capitalists come in and are able to invest, because we're, you know, we have strict mandates. So for example, we cannot invest at idea stage. This has to be done by someone else.
Yeah. So I would love to continue, but since we only have 10 minutes left, I'm gonna open the floor for any questions. And if if no questions are there, then I have more questions. So somebody typed, how do you manage the risks at early stages?
Okay. So now I'm gonna do an answer that is broad, and if it's not the right answer, please let me know. I'll try to address better. There is definitely risk. So venture capital is the business of risk, and this is why we invest in so many companies. So part of why we have, like, you know, 40, 45 portfolio companies per fund is because we want to dilute this risk, because we know that at early stage there is a very high risk that the company won't make it in year 2 or year 3. So the way it's constructed, this is a way that we manage the risk. I would say we spend a lot of time with the founder in the beginning. So the due diligence element, when we meet the founder, we meet the team, maybe we visit the premises, we ask questions, we sit with them. So we have the time also to build a conviction if we like this opportunity or not, and if we like the team or not. So I would say another way to manage risk is really by spending the time with founders to get to know them and get more and more, you know, at ease and familiar with how they operate, how they work. You know, it's like you're meeting someone for the first time. Like, you're not gonna know if you can be friends or not, but like you need to see them like a couple of times before you have this trust that is built. I think this is a very important. We have very thorough processes. We have a due diligence list that is big, detailed. We ask a lot of questions. We want to make sure that this partnership is, you know, we're going into something that we know what we're doing. And then I would say it's also a lot of psychology. So it's funny because VC, yes, it's finance and it's funding, but there's a lot of, you know, it's more like it's kind of a human job also, because it's a lot about evaluating how you can trust this person, how this person is capable of executing and what they're saying, are they saying really what they mean, and so on. So there's also, by doing it again and again and again, you start having kind of an experience of, okay, this looks like someone that I can build something meaningful with.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, this is how we're trying to do it, like the numbers, the metrics, but also spending time and the people element.
So nobody has sent any other questions yet. So let me see. So you're relatively new to the Iraqi market, is that true?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what are you interested in learning, and what are your initial impressions of the ecosystem so far?
So yeah, so I'm really new, so I don't know much, but I'm really interested to know more. I think everyone is, and I think from what I saw, so I had the chance and the opportunity to deliver a session with accelerators and incubators that were present from the Iraqi market. I felt a lot of very good energy, people that want to do things, and this was really was really good to see that. So I think there's a lot of potential. Now, what's missing for me is we need to put Iraq on the map of entrepreneurship in the region. And for me today, this is my personal experience, but I haven't seen or heard much, maybe because it's a nascent ecosystem. But I think what you guys are doing now and what you should continue doing is, be more present, go to conferences, do events, build bridges with other ecosystem support and ecosystem organization in other Middle Eastern countries. So kind of like a communication and like we have to know more about what's happening in the Iraqi ecosystem. The second thing I would say is I feel that but maybe I'm like, what I would be interested to know more is, do you have success stories? And if you don't, this will be a major change for you. The moment you start having Iraqi entrepreneurs that make it and like make successful businesses and showcase that, this will attract definitely the interest of investors, but also it will create a culture where entrepreneurship is seen as something good. And what I felt from the interactions I've had with some of the ecosystem partners is that there's still this mentality, but maybe, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, that, starting a business or being an entrepreneur is not yet seen as something great to do, or not enough in the culture of, the Iraqi education or universities or schools and so on. So maybe there's also something to be done on how can we show that Iraq can produce, great companies, great stories, and how can this inspire other Iraqis to do the same? Yeah, I would say that's what I feel about the country. And yeah, building bridges, I think, building bridges with the Lebanese ecosystem, the UAE, maybe the Jordanian. How can we help each other and like get to know better each other? Yeah.
So I mean, taking the conversation back for you and the attendees, a lot is actually happening, from whether from the government end or also from the ecosystem. I'm sure academia everywhere in the world can do better on that front. However, there is the Takween program, which is part of the American University in Iraq. So, and there are so many other players right now. And a new fund was established in May of this year. But what I would advise is that you follow our LinkedIn page and our Twitter, because every day we are posting news on what's happening every day. And also our newsletter, which comes out once a month. And I mean, the startups contact us so that they can have their, exclusive breaking news. So yeah, definitely follow what's happening. And also the corporates slowly are getting involved. They've, just as you said, abroad, they've realized that, to break into tech. So, so this is happening. And they are, some of them are also launching programs with other ecosystem partners. So that's also.
But I think that there is a strong interest in the Iraqi market, and you know that it's a large population. It's a young population. People are you know, there's a lot like elsewhere in the Middle East, but there's a lot of problems to be solved, and this is great for, you know, tech entrepreneurs. So I think that definitely Iraq is something we all want to look at, as we all, as you know, venture capitalists. And so we have 2 startups today that are in Iraq. They're not from Iraq, but you know, we have Toter, they opened in Iraq, and we have NimCard. It's a digital payment solution. They got licensed by the Iraqi central bank. So, and they are doing great. And all the feedback we get from them is that the Iraqi market is super interesting, and that there's definitely like things to be done there, and innovation to be done, and disruption to be done. So I would say, like, this is, if it's the time for Iraq, like definitely. And what we need to do is know a bit better what you're saying. So follow better, and also see also some startups that come to us and have this opportunity to interact more with the entrepreneurs that are from Iraq.
So as BNY Ventures, you would be interested in having investors or having different programs introduce you to Iraqi startups? Just so that, okay, so it's good to know that regional investors have this appetite right now.
Absolutely. For us, as long as it's a great product, it's a good team, and there's a market opportunity. And I think, you know, Iraq being a big market, this is definitely the case. Ideally, we don't like to invest in a solution for one country. So if this can have the opportunity to go beyond Iraq, this is even better. It will also, you know, we will have the impression that it's also more less risky in a sense. But we do the same for Lebanon. We do the same for Egypt. Like whenever we invest somewhere, we need to feel that this company can grow beyond its sole market. But there is definitely appetite, and I think we're super excited to, you know, start seeing, you know, great startups out of Iraq, definitely. Like and whatever we can do to help, also please let us know. We'd be happy to contribute.
Actually, thank you so much for today, because this has been great. And plus, we're going to be posting it on our website, on our YouTube page. So whoever was unable to attend will later on have a chance to see what happened. And Nadia, thank you so much. It was great talking to you, and good luck with everything with the new fund.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. It was a great pleasure. And I hope I'll have the opportunity to, you know, meet more of the, you know, startups and ecosystem players in the future. So good luck for everyone. And thanks for having those sessions. It's great.
Thank you so much.
Good work.
Right. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a great evening. Bye, everyone. Thank you.